On today's episode of the Real Recovery Podcast, episode number 71, we are honored to bring you the 5th chapter in our Founding Voices series, featuring Don M. Don is not only a cherished friend of the podcast, but a true father figure in our community, celebrating over 4.5 decades of sobriety. His story is filled with heartfelt moments from a turbulent childhood and overcoming family struggles, to finding purpose as a flight attendant and dedicating years to helping others in recovery. Don's honesty about loss, resilience through grief, and the power of chosen family shines throughout this episode. He was integral in Peter's recovery, introducing him to the Lunch Bunch, which has become a cornerstone of support for so many. Join us as we celebrate Don's unwavering commitment, wisdom, and the inspiration he brings to everyone he meets.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Julie, your co-host, on this journey of healing and transformation. Together with my co-host, Peter, we dive into the heart of recovery, sharing stories that resonate with courage and inspiration.
That's right, Julie. Each episode is a new chapter in this vast narrative of recovery, and we're honored to bring them to you. But keep in mind, the perspectives you'll hear are for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views of the podcast or our partners.
Indeed, while these conversations can be a powerful part of your recovery toolkit, they are not substitute for professional medical advice. We encourage you to seek guidance from your healthcare provider for any treatment-related decisions.
And if you're facing an immediate crisis, or if you just need to talk to someone who understands, don't hesitate to call the Recovery Crisis Line at 503-223-85. That number is also on our website. Help is available 24/7.
Now let's begin our episode
of recovery, real recovery. We're rolling. You're on. So we're just talking. We're just sitting here. People are going to join us on the Real Recovery Podcast. Mid-conversation. I'm here with Julie. My name's Peter, and we're here with Don. He's going to talk to us. Tell us a little bit about his. You've heard us go on and on about Don. You've listened to previous episodes.
Don is my sponsor, and Don is getting ready to celebrate 45 years on April 4th.
Yeah,
that is amazing. What year did you get sober?
1970.
But how old were you?
30.
Wow, almost your whole life.
Yeah.
I've spent almost all of them.
He gets a little emotional, which is a good thing. That's where I get it from.
I've spent almost all of my life in recovery. And it has been my life, not only the recovery part, but working, because I worked so many years in the field.
I know what you did, but will you tell our audience what you did?
I was a flight attendant for 10 and a half years. And I retired, but before I retired and when I got sober, the Association of Flight Attendants asked me if I would be a labor assistance, which labor assistance in those days was if you had a troubled flight attendant, you would go visit them and see how they were doing.
Oh.
And so it was really nice. And I was trained at the George Meany Institute in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
So it was very nice.
Yeah.
So how I got sober, let's go to start there.
Yeah, and how you grew up, because that was part of what I think got you using, right?
I grew up in a family where my alcoholism was all over the place, but my father was alcoholic and my mother was mentally ill. My growing up years were really nuts. I went to 24 different schools by the time I graduated.
Gee, how could you even get an education going 24?
You get bits and pieces, and every school is at a different place. You're either behind or you're ahead. So that's what made it hard. And it was, my family was probably, they were just white trash. There is no other way to put my family but just being white trash. They did stupid, crazy things. We'd move in the middle of the night because we hadn't paid our bills. We wouldn't have gas. We wouldn't have water. I remember my mother screaming, "Fill the bathtub up." What that meant is they were going to turn our water off.
Oh, wow.
So I lived in a house like that. And
Chaos.
it was just total chaos. And when you live there and you grow up into it, you try to make it normal because this is always, so you assume that everybody else is like you until you get a little bit older. And then you start having friends and you go, oh my God, your dad's been at the same job all of these years. Oh my God, you've lived in that same house. You're still there. I can't hardly believe that. And the people that had never been to a different school, I'm going, oh, you didn't move like I did. So education, it was never, when you move that many times, you become invisible. Because why? Not to make friends.
As soon as you get settled, you're gone again.
That's right. So you don't make friends. So it was my sister and I. Thank God my sister. I had a little brother, but he was 5 years younger. And that's my sister and I were so close because we're only 11 months apart. So it's actually
Thank
her.
God.
Oh, yeah. Thank God we grew up together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hated school. And I also have attention deficit and I'm dyslexic. So in those days, they knew nothing about that. They knew absolutely. Don he never pays attention. He's always staring out the window. And the other part of that staring out the window, I was so worried about what was going on at home that I didn't give a shit what was going on in that classroom. It was, well, is everything going to be there when I get home? So there was, where's my brother and my sister? When I was younger, I would be invited over to friend's house and I couldn't spend the night. I'd try, but I was so worried about what was going on at home, I couldn't stay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's childhood.
Yeah.
But in that childhood, I was so lucky to have wonderful friends, the friends that gave me the normalcy, the ones that loved me, the ones that sort of nurtured me a lot. And I had two families do that to me, one in LA and then two friends in Seattle. And they were just so good to me. If it wouldn't have been for them, and I also grew up in church, so if it wouldn't have been for my church people, that sort of stayed stable. And that's what I knew was church. Growing up in churches, that's all I knew. And
you grew up down south, right?
I grew up in Los Angeles until I was 15. Then my parents finally, dear God, got a divorce, which was way overdue as far as I was concerned. And matter of fact, I remember one conversation I had with my mother because I was my mother's keeper. Remember, she's mentally ill. So I told her finally one time, my father had came home. He'd been gone for God knows how long. Anyway, he came home and I went to school. I would come home and straighten up the house for mom. I would go walk over and pick up mom from work and I'd walk her back. I came home, my father's sitting in the recliner like he owned the place. And I thought, I hate you so bad. Mm-hmm. I hate you. And I told mother, a few days later, I said, Mother, if you don't do something, I'm leaving. I cannot stay here anymore doing this with you. But finally, she did divorce him, which was a blessing. It was an absolute blessing. Of course, the man she married, I didn't trust because I didn't know if he was paying the bills. I didn't know what he was doing. So there was no trust with him, but he turned out to be a wonderful man for me, but it took years.
She remarried.
She finally remarried, met a great guy. And remember, my mother's mentally ill. He, whatever he did was wrong, but bless his heart, he just loved her. And that's when life really started to do some changes. And I was in the Vietnam War time. I was draftable then in that period. And I thought I was living in Seattle. My folks moved to San Mateo, California, which is Bay Area. And I thought I better go move with them because at least I can stay with them until the draft.
Right.
I finally became 4F. That's how I ended it up because I've always had high blood pressure and they wouldn't take me.
Oh, so is that what you said, 4F?
4F. And so I finally got that. So I knew I wasn't going any place. But I stayed at home for a number of years with my folks. I didn't leave until I was 23. 23 years old. And then when I finally got the guts to go, okay, my life really needs to change, is I moved back to Seattle. Seattle was a place I always dearly loved Seattle. But let me go back a little bit here. My stepdad worked for the airlines. So I had passes for years, which means you travel for free on a space available. So I would almost go up to Seattle every weekend, unless I got bumped off the flight. So I did that for a long time. So living in San Mateo wasn't where I wanted to be. I finally moved to Seattle. Once I moved to Seattle, and my life just changed. I realized that I was gay, and I had to do something. I had to accept myself or do something to myself, because I just couldn't do this, live the lie anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I came out in Seattle.
And this, in a year time frame, this was when it wasn't really not, could not be open, right?
It was just becoming better because of Stonewall. I always have to talk about Stonewall. The younger people don't realize how important Stonewall was. It changed everything, and it was like overnight. So I was just after Stonewall. They weren't bothering the bars anymore. And in Seattle, I guess it used to be absolutely horrible, because we couldn't even dance together. If they came in, they had a light that would flicker on and off, and you had to stop dancing. Those were the days.
Like the raids. Yeah, they raid the bars.
They raided the bars. Yeah, they would raid
I
them.
have never heard of such a thing.
No.
Mhm.
And so I came out and I started living that part of my life. However, the problem is that's when I started drinking. Now I'm 23, 24. And remember, I grew up in a very religious time in my life. And going and being gay was so horrible to the church. I had to leave the church because I no longer was welcome. I knew if they found out, I couldn't be there.
And this is what got you through all those years. And here you have to leave it.
It was, you don't know. I have to leave because just who I slept with, it was tragic for me, tragic. So I would go into this bar in Seattle. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a tavern in those days. It was a tavern. And the bartender took a liking to me. And he would always let me know if the people that were trying to cruise me or something were decent. So he protected me. But that's when I found out liquor. When I found out, because I used to go in there and I would tremble and I would become so frightened of this because I knew my religion was going with me too.
Mm-hmm.
The alcohol stopped the trembling. So that was like,
Was your courage?
it's my courage. But then then what happened was, and my first really good job was at Greyhound. I drove for Greyhound. And I only got to drive the summer with them, but oh my God, they paid in those days like crazy. It was like unbelievable the money I was making. I thought, dear God, I don't like this, but it's all right.
Yeah.
But Greyhound only hired me for the summer. So I thought I was based out of Portland then with Greyhound. And I said, I'm going to go down to my folks and I will stay with them until I find out what I'm going to do. So I went down and my stepdad said, Don, why don't you apply and be a flight attendant? And of course, I don't have a whole lot of self-esteem and I've never been as good as. So when he said it to me, I went, no, that's never going to happen to me. There is no way. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not all these things enough. But just to get him off my back, really, is I went down and applied. And when they gave me the job, I was beyond excited. You got to remember, I was used to the airlines. I always wanted to be a flight attendant because when I first started flying, there were no males. When I got hired, there were very few male flight attendants. So I broke a little ground there.
Yeah.
I can see you as a flight attendant big time. And Don's fabricating a little bit. He was quite a stud in his younger years. You might not have thought so, but I've seen the pictures.
Most of us did not think we were what we
were.
That. Yeah.
Then
Our
I
self-image.
went through training And at the end of my training, my parents said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Would you pay my bar bill off?" Now, that should have been a sign, because the day I graduated, I was so hungover. We'd all just drank like crazy the night before. So we were all hungover and both graduated. I started flying and I loved it. It was a different time. It was when we still cared about our passengers. We would tell you, "We want you to have a good time." We served meals. We served hot towels. We
You
did.
could smoke then. on the
Yeah. Oh,
airplane.
because I
Oh, I
smoked.
remember my mother smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when I moved here, you were still allowed to smoke because she smoked a few cigarettes and had a few drinks.
A lot of drinks. And the other part of it, once again, when I would want to pass on another airlines, I usually always went first class because that was part of the deal. Is if we have seats for you, we're going to put you up front. And you get really used to that real easy.
Yeah.
And one drink in the air is not like a drink on the ground. It can be usually 2 to 1. And
Really?
I have been so drunk on airplanes in my day because being other flight attendants, they know what you do. So they would feed you liquor of the whole trip. Yeah, I've been poured off a few airplanes. A quick story. A bunch of us went to New Orleans. We went out, we flew down on good old Braniff when it was still in service. And we flew down on Braniff. We came home on Braniff, but it was New Orleans to Dallas to Seattle. Okay, I looked at those two of that were flying with me and I said, "You two look so drunk. They'll never let us on in your condition." So I got us on the airplane. I passed out cold.
Oh, wow.
I woke up and I said, "Where are we?"
Oh, no.
It was unbelievable. You get the signs that say there could be something wrong here. So anyway, I had a great time. And one of my really good friends, his name was Robert, and Robert died of AIDS in the 80s. But he got in trouble at work for drugs and drinking. He was just doing too much partying. And I knew when I moved from Phoenix to the Bay Area, when I moved to San Mateo, I knew that something was wrong, but I really thought I was having a nervous breakdown because the liquor was getting a lot and everything was getting a little crazy. But I always blamed it on my mental health. I couldn't be an alcoholic, not me. So when he went into treatment, I called up. I was always good friends with the managers. When I called up and I said, "Hey, do you know where Robert is?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to go there." I don't know. It was the only thing I ever did. And I knew because Robert was there, I had somebody. I had another gay person. I went there, I checked in, and I thought it was just going to be a dry out. I didn't know anything about this AA stuff. Didn't know anything. And I remember one of the nurses, when they were cutting me off of my Valium. That's another whole story about my Valium addiction. And this nurse cut me off my Valium. And she said, "You're nothing but an alcoholic." I thought, I really want to slap the shit out of you because I felt one more thing of being different. It was the different that bothered me so much. And of course, my head said, "How dare you? How could you talk to me like that?" Because anyway, I come to find out the people in my treatment center the doctor was gay. 2 of the counselors were gay. I had it in like Flynn there. It was really good. And so did Robert. And we graduated. And when you leave, you always get a prognosis. And they said, "Don, yours is poor. Yours is really poor." I went, "How could you say that to me? How could you even do that to me?" Of course, an alcoholic's mind is, "I'll show you. I'll stay sober." The night I got out of rehab, in those days, a lot of the flight attendants came from money families, big money families. This was a big money family, Asian family. And they had one of the best restaurants in downtown Chinatown. Open house, liquor open, everything open. Well, needless to say, I left there drunk.
Oh, my goodness.
They after treatment. So I guess they were very right. My progress is not going to be good. So I played with it. I got out in January. I played with it until April the 4th, and I kept trying to prove them wrong. I tried everything. I tried only drinking and not taking my Valium. Take my Valium and not drink. But I really like the Valium and the drinking. That works real well for me. But so I was talking to my sister this morning, matter of fact, and I never told her the story. I said, I was in a bar in Redwood City, California, and God, I was drunk. I was really drunk, thinking to myself, how did this happen once again? And I had what I call an out-of-body experience, is I could see myself sitting at that bar, and my head said, you can either stay there and do this and have this kind of life, or you can do what you're told one time in your life. Get a sponsor, go to meetings, and don't drink. I said, it's better than dying here at this bar. And if I had lost my job, I would have been so crushed. Because then I still love flying. I enjoyed it so much. And that would have been the end of me. I think that would have been I would have just been ruined, because I'd never get another one. Anyway, so I started straightening up my life then. And a year later, I met the man who I was going to stay with for 40 years. And
A year after you got sober?
It was 1 year. I waited a little over a year that I met him. And little did I know that we would be together all those years at that time. But they were closing Phoenix, San Francisco base again. And so I moved down to Phoenix. And Doug and I bought a little house down in Phoenix. And I stayed flying for another 5 years. What happened why I quit flying was a couple of things. Why I quit flying was the passengers had changed so much. These people would walk on the airplane and I'd go, my God, did you even take a shower? They just looked horrible. And they were rude and nasty. And I started getting a fear of flying. And my fear of flying was thunder and lightning storms. And it seemed every time I went out, I was in one. Every time. The last flight I was on as a passenger, I flew from from Phoenix to Minneapolis, St. Paul, landed in a thunder and lightning storm. Flew to Detroit, landed in a thunder and lightning storm. My head said if I could get to that liquor kit, I'd drink.
Wow.
And I said, no job is worth that. I knew then. And when I got to my hotel room, I called Doug and I said, Doug, I've flown my last trip. I'm done. So when I got home, I was looking for a house there in Detroit is why I was in Detroit, because I was going to move out of Phoenix. So when I got home, there was a lot of stuff to do. We had a little house we needed to sell. We needed to do a bunch of things. And we moved to Sacramento because Doug had a sister there. My sister was there. And we had some other friends and family there. So we said, that's a good place to go. We went there and I volunteered for the National Council on Alcoholism in Sacramento. The woman that ran it, she kept saying to me, Don, you need to work in treatment. I'd said, they don't make any money. She said, Don, you need to work in treatment. So finally, to get her off my back, I went there was a very nice treatment center in Sacramento at that time. It was called Starting Point, and it was beautiful, absolutely a stunning treatment center. And I went to work there in, of course, the lowest position, making the lowest money I had made ever. And I thought, oh, dear God, what am I going to do now? Then I was lucky. I got a promotion into admitting. In admitting, I also did interventions. I learned interventions, and I learned a great deal. That's when I developed my love for families. I could see the pain in the families. And every Saturday, I did a family program for the people. It was just wonderful. The thing about the codependent is when the light goes on for them, you can see it. You literally go, oh, what's going on with you? What's happening now? So I knew if they could ruin the drunks or drug addicts drinking, that would be a part that they could at some point get sober. I was very fortunate there. I kept moving up. And my boss, she asked me if I would work in the marketing department. And I said, I'd love to because I wanted to work with her. And I worked marketing and enjoyed that part. And then we had a change at my treatment program with management. And the guy that was my new manager, I couldn't stand him. I knew where he was from, and I hated that man. And I thought, oh, God. Anyway, so after a while, when you're in AA, you know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that worked in treatment. I had a friend that was running a treatment program in Lodi. And I went to her. She came and got me. She said, would you work for me? I said, I'd love to. And I loved her. We're still friends, great friends. And she was a wonderful woman. When I was still at starting point, I got my certification. I became an EAP, which is an employee assistance professional. That means I help troubled employees. If a company was having problems with an employee that had been a good employee all along, but all of a sudden they're missing work, they're absent, they're not showing, they would send them to me. And I'd try to figure out what was going on with them. I did the EAP work for 25 years. It was wonderful work. I got to see changes in people's life. I got to know them. Some of them still call me.
A lot of people call you. Let's be honest.
I love that, but I was getting ready to retire. And Doug hated, I'd moved to Modesto by this time, and Doug just hated Modesto. He said, let's go up to Portland. And of course, getting me to the Northwest was always a goal for me. I love the Northwest.
That must be about the time I met you.
It was.
Yeah.
I'd just been here a short time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I've just been so blessed. I could sit here and tell you how fortunate I am.
And I want to tell our audience something. It's a funny story. I met Don at the meeting all of us still go to, but I had already been going there for quite some time. But I was getting ready to go to court to expunge my record. And my lawyer said, get 2 witnesses from AA, 1 from work and 1 from your personal. Don and my sponsor got along quite well. And so I asked Don to go to court with me. So Don, my sponsor, Shauna, and Michael Lett from work went with me to go to court. And I spent a fortune of the lawyer interviewing Don, interviewing all of them. And when we went to court, I'm sitting with the lawyer, and the judge says, I don't need to speak to your witnesses. And I'm like, fear instantly. I'm like, do you know how much money I spent? I'm just thinking in my head. My lawyer winks at me and says, it'll be okay. I turn to look behind me at Fred and Don, and they're like, I didn't know what he was going to say. And he said, you've done an amazing job this last 20 years. I don't need to speak to your witnesses. And I'm thinking, oh no, he doesn't want to speak to my witnesses. And that's how I met Don, intimately met Don. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's amazing. That was like such a great day.
It was a great day. I was high on life. I moved here. We went to court on April 18th of 2014. Mm-hmm. I moved here by the end of the month. I didn't want to move from Beaverton to here until I went to court. I wanted there to be nothing associated with that life, believe it or not. Yeah, no. When I came here, it'll be 10 years in April that I've lived here, and it'll be 30 years in October. I know the dates like people know. Yeah. Don was saying something about, I forget what we were talking about the other day. And he said, yeah, your prison ID number or something. And I was 813691. And I was like, I know it like my social security number. Even though people don't see that, you don't forget it.
I think that AA for me, I have had such a wonderful life. If people, newcomers, could just sit for a minute, be still for a minute, because newcomers walk in the door and they want 2 years. Mm-hmm. Isn't how it works.
A pill. Take a pill.
Take a pill.
Sober.
You're no. But if they could hang on long enough And yeah, they're probably going to relapse and they're going to do these things.
Did you ever relapse?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But not in AA.
Uh-huh.
You did.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yes. When I first got out of treatment, I couldn't stay sober.
But you were going to AA at that time?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
I had been to so many meetings drunk. It's not nice. I've had people say, you just sit there and keep your mouth shut.
Oh my. I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
No, because I thought, what am I going to do now? And little did I ever know what a world this would bring to me.
And what friends?
I've got wonderful friends. Even when I lost Doug, I have to tell you, I'm going to go a little bit into this, a little bit, not much. But when Doug passed away it'll be 4 years ago in May. And when he passed away, he really got sick. And when we took him to the hospital and they finally diagnosed him that he had cancer. And I went, okay. Took him home and they said, you got 6 months. I only got 2. And we never talked about money. I knew we had some money, but I didn't know how much or anything like that because I never wanted to mess with the money. But when he died, it was the fear of, oh my God, now what do I do? And I went to bed that night. It was really funny. The night he died, I went to bed and I thought, okay, now Doug died. You didn't. You have to get a life. And that's how my new life is now. 4 years ago, I was so terrified. And now I've got this great life again. But it's always about, I have a disease. A symptom of my disease is living. I'm sorry. I have a disease. It's called living. A symptom of my disease is my alcoholism. Because I have to do life without anything. And the things that scare you. But I know today, even when Doug died and I went through some stuff, I went, why would I drink now? What good would it do? And I always think if people would think through before they relapse.
It doesn't make anything better.
No.
Right. I do. What I was taught was playing the tape forward. So you sit there and you think, okay, sure, you can have a drink, but let's play that tape forward. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you do a similar
thing.
I
do that with lots of things.
I play the tape backwards. Where do you never want to be again? And when Don and I hooked up again, so my first sponsor, I had him for 23 years, had died. And Doug had died. And Izzy was like, you should get so-and-so for your sponsor. And I was like, oh, no. And then he was like, you should get so-and-so for your sponsor. And I was like, oh, no. And I'm not going to be your sponsor. You have until your birthday to get a sponsor. And I said, I'll get my own sponsor. And Don started going to meetings again in person because we're coming out of COVID now. And I saw Don at a meeting and then we started talking and I said, I think I'll just be as good for Don as Don will be for me. My sponsor had just died and Doug had died 6 months before. And I was like, I trust him. He already went to court with me. What has he got to prove to me?
Right.
And little did I know, and I'm going to get emotional now because I take after Don, that I was going to have the worst year of my life and that he didn't know what he was fucking in for. Seriously, MRIs, puking in the MRI tube. I remember to this day when we went to the open MRI and you had to rub my foot and they gave me Xanax. And then literally he came here and sat here 3 nights in a row and my eardrum has just exploded. I'm working 65, 70 hours a week. About after Doug died, the good thing was Don, like you and your story with Don wasn't as comfortable with our group. And luckily it was in between Sprint. I had lost my 19-year job, not because anything I did, because they closed with the T-Mobile merger, my sponsor, and it's COVID. It was a very bleak time. Anyway, so we got to hang out and go to lunch and go to meetings. Took him to Robbins to play bingo. We got really good to go. I didn't get sick until the following year, but it was really good for both of us. And had he not got comfortable at the meeting, you wouldn't have got comfortable at the meeting.
Yeah, actually, and we talked about this earlier, but it was meeting Dawn at ECAC where I wasn't as comfortable. I didn't feel I could be as open at that club. It was more conservative, and just God works, a higher power, whatever you want to call it. It's just life happens in mysterious ways, and I had just come back from going out, and Don was there, and we met. He came over, gave me his card, and then I learned that we shared a common trait, both being gay. And Don's a few years older, but at similar times going out. I talked about on my story how there's no other place to go when you're gay. You go to the bars and you drink. That's just part of the life. That's how because you had to hide from everything. That was the only place you could be open. So I was so ecstatic when I met someone who shared that we could have this common dialogue. And he mentioned the meeting that we go to now, the lunch bunch. But for whatever reason, we still put it off. We didn't, maybe it's too far to drive. I don't know what, we didn't go out there, but we tried to start a meeting in Gresham at the East County Alano Club and thought there's enough people out there. Maybe we can get things going. And it didn't happen. It wasn't accepted. Yeah. So we just took a chance. And I think you said, oh, do you want to go? Let's go next Friday or whatever day it was. And we did. And I fell in love. I was like, these are my people. And so we started going there.
I have to tell you, from a person not wanting to go to that meeting, and I didn't go there for years.
I know.
When I went back, there's something now. I don't know if it's me that's changed, probably.
It is.
But the group's also changed. And I fell in love with it. I'm absolutely in love with our group now.
It is. I've chaired a lot of meetings. People fall in love with me instantly, seriously. And then they ask me to chair a meeting, but I never feel comfortable as I do. I've chaired at True Colors, the Alarm Club, and I don't. I've chaired at Patty's meeting. I've chaired in Alabama. Okay. But I'm just saying, I never feel when we go into our group, we get in trouble for talking because we're giggling. And it's crazy. I think it's because it's the first group I trusted at. I never trusted anybody, especially a man, until I went to that group. And I know your sponsor, my old sponsor, wasn't my dad or my therapist or any of those things that they're not supposed to be, but Don is. My dad died at 15. I only really remember seeing him 5 times.
Yeah.
And literally at Peter's house this year is the first and the best Father's Day I've ever had in my whole life.
Father's Day.
And Don doesn't even have any children. And somehow he got stuck with me and Peter. And it's just, when they say God works in mysterious ways, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. And by God, it's whatever you feel is your higher power. I know that for me was a real sticking point. And we've talked about that on our show before. But life works in mysterious ways and it's brought us together. And
if you had told me 45 years ago that I was going to end up in Portland, Oregon, and this was going to be my new life, I would have said, first of all, I'm never going to quit flying. And it's not going to be this isn't where I'm going to end up. I think that's the thing about people too, is like when they get sober, just sit still, hang on, and live life. But living the life is the hardest part.
Right.
Like dealing with feelings, like you always say, it's hard. So
being in relationships, dear God, I don't know how to do them. I'm not good at them. Yeah. Relationships are just things that happen in life. That you lose people, you lose good friends. And that's all the things that I can do, but do it sober.
Yeah.
Those are the blessings.
And I think talking about the meeting, being so comfortable, I think that's a key thing to pick up on. If you're not happy where you're going or you don't feel comfortable in the group that you're in, go to a different one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it took me, and I don't know that I wouldn't be going in and out again still if I stayed at ECAC, but I feel like I found a group where I can be open and honest and comfortable with myself, because I see myself and others in the group. Because part of why I drank was because I was different and I tried to quell, just like you alluded to. You had said it was deal with this or end it. Being gay, talking about being gay, and we turned to escapes and alcohol, drugs, food, whatever the escape is for you, grow and manifest and to tear your life
believe
apart.
it or not, in our group, and I know this wasn't your intention 4 years ago, but I see what you've done with Keiichi and getting him a sponsor in the chiropractic world. I've seen you embrace my sponsee. She calls you grandpa mom and whatnot. And I see us have a different family, a family of choice. And for me being an only child, my family's far away. Like it's everything to me. I feel so comfortable there. It's such an open meeting.
And I always think if you touch one life,
Yeah, that's my goal too. Touch one person.
That's the whole reason we did this podcast.
that's your job.
We want
It is-
somebody in a car, right? That might be think of sticking a needle in their arm or ending their life to hopefully Google some recovery or
Right.
go to a recovery podcast, hear any one of our stories, and hopefully it'll motivate them to get to a meeting, get to treatment, get to a program, change their life, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if you meant to touch one person, you've already touched Peter, you've already touched me, and I can think of quite a few others.
Yeah, but that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about you touching other people's lives. And guys, one more time, it's been a journey and I wouldn't trade it.
Well, you were the person we wanted on our podcast the most. We talk about you a lot in like the first 3 episodes, in Peter's story, in my story, in the introduction. We talk about you a lot. And next week, we're going to have Tony. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And Tony is of the straight kind. So he just shows you, and Tony goes to our meeting.
Oh, the disease is non-discriminatory. It'll affect anybody. It doesn't matter
Any
who you
race.
are, what sex, what disposition.
Financial status.
Yeah.
You can be poor, you can be rich. It doesn't matter.
And it's not just alcohol per se. It's any kind of addiction. I have a good friend who I hope will be on the show too, and their addiction is food. They use food as a means to cope, or were using food as a means to cope, and they've been able to recover, be in recovery from that. And it's something more
cross addiction. You stop using yours, and some people turn to gambling. Some people, I love a good meal.
Video playing,
there you go.
binge watching. There's so many things that alcohol and drugs are at the forefront because they're so devastating. But it doesn't mean that other addictions aren't as powerful.
It's just the symptom.
Yeah.
And that's why we
Alcohol
wanted to
and
do
drugs are
real
the
recovery. We didn't want it to be limited to one area.
I always said in my lifetime, the one thing I always hope that people will quit in AA, NA, and just be welcoming to everyone, no matter who walks through that door.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're very good I'm very shy, so I have that barrier, but I see you always going right up to
Me too.
the people, new people, existing people, just always out there with the hand. And I think that means the world.
I know how hurt they are.
Yeah.
You don't come in here.
Getting it all together.
No.
Yeah.
And without pain.
Yeah.
That's all.
One question I have, because you have so much time, and in your story, you started, I think, from other stories, it seems a little bit later, like in your 20s. When you
I was when I started going to
drinking. But,
yes, I didn't get long. I didn't have a lot of harmful consequences. Somebody told me a long time ago, you can get off that elevator any place you want. Because I used to hate it. When I first started going to AA, because you went to treatment, you were called a silk sheet drunk.
I've never
That's
heard of that.
because
You have that.
you went to rehab.
Oh, okay.
So since I went to treatment 7 times, do I have the best silk sheets there ever?
Yes. And they would be AA's changed, and I'm so happy. But when AA or NA can just deal with isms, no matter what the ism is, because I've got a list of them. I'm alcoholic. Food's one of my favorite things. And,
Financial insecurity.
Oh, my-
I got that one too.
you know, and I have to tell you this.
He's grown so much in this area, though.
But I have to tell you, financial insecurity is still, for me, because of the way I was raised. We were so poor. And I said, I would never be like that. Absolutely never be that poor again. And God never saw me do that. My big problem with Dawn is I get in the way between me and God.
And for those of you who struggle with the God term, it can be a group of drunks.
Yeah.
Can be good, orderly direction until you get comfortable with your higher power.
I use the word God so people will understand what I'm talking about. It's just the spirit. It's whatever if a bush out there will keep you sober, dear God, that's a wonderful bush.
And that's a higher power.
Peter and I talked about it. For me, it's been 3 different things in my sobriety. First, the parole officer, then the group of drunks, and then somewhere I gained a spiritual connection. It took about till the 10th year. I'm a slow learner. Okay. And I'm lucky. I went to treatment so many times. I haven't had to relapse. But
So a lot of people have been in the program for as long as you've been sober, but they've been in and out. What do you do for yourself that has kept you in the program all those times when you get tempted or life is so horrible that I would be like, I'm getting that bottle. I'm escaping out of here. What's your wisdom, if you will, or what do you do for yourself that others might be able to?
I'm blessed with
Listen.
so many good friends. I'm blessed with that. And why, if alcohol could solve one issue, it doesn't. You're a fool. You're chasing what you were chasing before. No, it won't solve a thing for me. It won't make anything better. It will absolutely, I cannot imagine drinking now, that it would turn my life so upside down.
amen.
Yeah. And again, I've had such a wonderful journey. When things have seemed the darkest, there's always been something. If I will just sit and be still a little bit, it'll be okay.
I like that.
I
Words to live by.
want to thank you for taking part of your busy, chilly day
Yes. Your
to
retired
come over
day.
here. And I know you don't like speaking in front of the group as much. You're more of a supporter than
Yes, I don't like speaking. It's not my thing. And as some of you can already tell, I'm very
sensitive.
Yeah.
That's why I like you. I get it from you. Don is not my real dad, but I swear to God, we're cut from the same DNA. I'm dead serious. How he likes things is how I like things. What he thinks look good, I think look good, minus the red couch. Can't be perfect.
So much.
Thank you. Made this very easy for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that's another idea of this podcast is we're just sitting around chit-chatting. So there's no pressure. Again, when I get up in front of a room, I lose sleep for a week if I know I have to share in front of a group. But to sit down and just chit-chat, heck, I can.
Thank you. Made it easy, both of you.
Oh, thank you for being here again.
Yeah.
I've said it a
And
few
I
times.
love you both.
Oh,
Love
I
you
love you
right
to the
back.
moon and back. Exactly. Okay. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And thank you for tuning in to Real Recovery.
RealRecoveryPodcast.com. Visit it, like us, follow us, share us. We'd love to hit as many people as we can. We want to
We're
have.
brand new. So that is our goal.
Yep. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks to each and every one of you for lending us your ears and hearts. Your engagement is what fuels our passion and keeps this podcast thriving.
We cherish the moments we share here and hope they resonate with you. Whether you're on a daily commute, at the gym, or just taking a moment for yourself.
Make sure to head over to our website at realrecoverypodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest insights and uplifting stories from our community delivered straight to your inbox.
Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player too, so you can keep up with every new episode. It's your support that keeps our conversation alive and meaningful.
And if our stories have touched you, consider using the donate button on our site. Your contributions, no matter the size, are deeply appreciated. They help us continue our mission of sharing hope and healing.
Join us beyond the podcast and follow our journey on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. All the links are on our site. so you can stay connected and be a part of the Real Recovery community every day.
Your likes, shares, and comments not only spread the message of recovery, but also remind us that we're all in this together.
So, until we meet again, remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and we'll be here to accompany you every step of the way to recovery, real recovery.
Thanks for listening.